What is the day-to-day life of a superhero? How mundane must that be, waiting for the next big event to happen? Or how do you deal with the death of your own friends? These are concepts that are explored in the storyline Radiant Black. And we did the first batch of videos of this a little while ago, and today I wanted to continue where we left off. Now, Radiant Black is a superhero that got his abilities from a mysterious element that landed on the planet Earth. He can basically create black holes and move things around. And as we've discovered over the course of the first two videos, he fought against a Radiant Red person who has the ability to change their shape and absorb materials, and this got him killed, kind of. He got thrown into a coma, and then his best friend, Marshall, took over the abilities of Radiant Black, while Nathan, the original Radiant Black, was in the hospital dealing with his coma. Marshall then discovered more about the Radiants. There's a red, there's a yellow, there's a pink, and then there's him. And they teamed up to battle against an evil villain who showed up to get rid of the Radiants and take their powers. But they ended up defeating that villain and then going back to their regular mundane lives, where Marshall now has to deal with the revelations that there's this place called Existence, and there's a giant robot that's talking to him about his powers, but is being super vague about it. He has to deal with the fact that people now know who Radiant Black is and may love or hate him, and that he's kind of stopping more mundane crimes, on top of the fact his best friend Nathan is still in a coma. So today we're going to explore the next portion of Radiant Black, and I hope you guys enjoy. This is Comicstorian. We make audio dramas of your favorite comic books, so you know what to add to your collection, and I highly recommend the Massive Verse, which is what Radiant Black is in, and Radiant Black itself. Let's get into the next part of Volume 2. The next day, Marshall wakes up in his apartment like any other day, going through his morning routine and heading to work. Once he gets to work, he hears his boss listening to a podcast talking about the Radiants, and he isn't happy about it, since they aren't saying the nicest things about him. At the end of the day, he heads to the hospital where he sits by Nathan's bedside telling him what's been going on and promises that they'll hang out when Nathan finally wakes up. Time keeps going on, with Marshall's days melting together in the same routine, with the same spots of him trying to act like a hero. A month passes, and one day Marshall is visited by Satomi, Radiant Red. She takes him out to lunch and tries to apologize for what happened to Nathan. Marshall starts to get mad as she tells him that she is just trying to scare Nathan into leaving her alone. "I came to say I'm sorry," she finally says, and Marshall shakes his head, telling her that she'll have to do better than that. She's the one that put him in the hospital. So, the two of them eventually stand by Nathan's hospital room. Satomi steps forward to the man that she put into a coma. "Hey Nathan, it's nice to meet you," she says quietly, and time passes with Nathan staying in his coma, while Marshall visited him every day. He continues to work, he continues to try and be a superhero, and he fights against the likes of Doppler, Shift, and the Armored Warrior, but everyone keeps bad-mouthing him. He finally has to go visit the makers of the Circle podcast, asking them to help him out by revamping his brand. "How about instead of us being enemies, I'll give you access. We make some dope merch and everyone loves me again, and you stop bad-mouthing me on your podcast." The podcasters all stare at him for a moment. "What's in it for us?" Marshall explains that it's for a good cause, but the podcasters aren't so sure, pointing out that most of the new villains have only begun to appear since Radiant Black showed up on the scene. It's the old argument. A superhero arrives and the villains arrive to counter him. Marshall finally sighs. "I'll give you a percentage and follow you on Twitter." It doesn't take long for the group to team up, promoting the podcast and the Radiant Black welcome box. More time passes, and Nathan has been in a coma for almost a year now. On day 224, Marshall is sitting at the bar, trying to come up with an idea for the story that Nathan had been writing. And he looks up to see Nathan's spirit standing over him. "Boo!" Nathan says with a laugh, and Marshall just stares. "I'm dreaming, aren't I? 'Cause, yeah, this place was destroyed," Marshall says, looking around and realizing that he's in the very bar that was destroyed in the fight with Radiant Red. "Yep," Nathan says with a sad nod, and he smiles at Marshall. "I know you're hurting, but everything's going to be fine. You're going to be fine. I promise." Day 239, Nathan's mom calls with tears in her eyes. They're saying, "It's time." Day 240, Marshall is drunk, angry and sad by the news, but a spectral hand falls to his shoulder. "Do you want to go for a walk?" Ghost Nathan asks him, and the two walk through the streets of their hometown, talking about life. until Marshall finally looks up and sees that he's at the hospital. Ghost Nathan isn't with him anymore, and he heads inside, heading to Nathan's room as the doctor is about to unhook him from the machines. Marshall watches in silence as the doctors begin to work, and he suddenly realizes something. "Wait, put it back! He's still alive! I can save him!" Marshall shouts as he goes rushing out of the room and running into the streets, shouting into the sky. "He's alive, isn't he?" He screams, but the voice doesn't answer him. He realizes that his dreams of Nathan's spirit weren't dreams at all, that he's been a part of Marshall ever since he took the Radiance. But there's still no answer. "Fine, I'll do it the hard way," Marshall says quietly, returning to the train tracks to the place where Nathan originally got the powers, and he stands on those tracks. He watches as a train is getting closer and closer. "You don't want to talk? Cool, but I'm not getting off these tracks until we do, and if I die, that'll absolutely affect you. Maybe somebody worse than me bonds with this thing." He snaps as that train is barreling down upon him, and a light flashes, and a voice begins to speak to Marshall. "Hello, Marshall." Marshall demands to know if it is possible to save Nathan. Existence informs him. "It is, but you will not succeed." "What does that mean?" Marshall demands. "There is only truth in existence. To attempt this will come at a great cost. Are you prepared to lose everything?" Marshall doesn't hesitate. "Let's go," he says, disappearing in front of the train. He falls through the sky, twisting and landing in his radiant armor, and he looks around at the strange world that is laid out for him. "All right, I guess that this is the way," he says, running along a starry path and the dotted lines that appear on the ground. He stops at a strange wall with a large robot phasing through the wall and leaning down to look at him. "Hello, Marshall. Welcome to existence," it says, holding out his hand. "To reach Nathan Burnett, you must reach for the truth. There is only truth in existence," it says, and Marshall steps into its hand, and the robot puts him on his shoulder. It begins to walk through existence, informing Marshall once again that this attempt will come at a great cost. But Marshall doesn't care. Nathan is his best friend. He was supposed to be radiant black. Marshall will do anything he can to bring him back. The robot leads him into a strange crystal building, and inside of it is a black hole. The path to truth is indirect and fatal. The terrain is treacherous and fatal. Travel the helix. Through existence, you will find truth. If existence does not consume you first, it tells him as it lowers him to the ground. "Wait, you're not coming?" But the robot stands back up. "I cannot follow beyond this place. Do not despair. You will surely die, but you will not be alone. Remember, Marshall, the only truth is existence." Marshall stares at it for a moment. "Right," he says before turning back to the black hole, reaching out his hand and suddenly disappearing. Light and sound bleed together for Marshall as he is tugged away, and he suddenly appears again, shocked to find the warrior standing before him. "Welcome to existence," 001 says. Marshall hits him with an energy blast, but the warrior quickly reappears, placing his blade to Marshall's throat. "Your robot acquaintance did. Then we made a deal, he and I," 001 says. "You are here to attempt the impossible, to navigate existence and retrieve your friend. When you fail, I will retrieve the Radiant," 001 tells him. He steps away, allowing Marshall to stand, and 001's helmet disappears, revealing an alien face. "I have no interest in sinking, only protecting the Radiant. You have no hope in existence." 001 begins to lead Marshall through the realm of existence until they reach the sunless shore. "Keep your wits. There could be all manner of," he begins, but the world blacks out for Marshall for a moment, and he shakes his head, bringing himself back. "To stock before we go any further," 001 says, finishing a different sentence. They continue to walk, with 001 explaining that existence only cares about the truth. "Sorry, I can't keep this straight. Are we talking about the idea of the place?" Marshall asks him, but the voice calls out and Marshall turns. "Hey, Marshall," Nathan says, standing on a cliff overlooking them, fire blazing around his body. "Welcome to existence," Nathan says. But Marshall doesn't believe the specter. Nathan then explains that he isn't trying to trick Marshall, just to hope that appearing in this form will make Marshall listen. "You're not ready to be here. This isn't going to end well. And if you must continue this path, I'll gladly take you. Just know, this will be a one-way trip, Nathan warns him. There's only truth in existence. But does the path lead to Nathan? Marshall asks, and Nathan peers at him for a moment. Yes, he finally says. That's all I need to know. Marshall says, firing a blast of energy at Nathan, destroying the rock. A moment passes, but existence begins to rumble, and the pair look up to see demonic creatures flying towards them. Access your second form. 001 orders, but Marshall can't do it at will, so the pair run. As a portal opens up, the two of them drop into it, and the two of them land in a new landscape, with Marshall looking up at a giant Nathan leaning over them. Jesus, he whispers. Hello, Marshall. We're learning so much about you, but our light has only started to reflect. Why are you here? You know why I'm here. I'm here to save my best friend, Marshall shouts back at the giant Nathan, but the giant Nathan stares. You're lying. Energy begins to gather around Marshall. Why would I be lying? He shouts, and the image of Nathan begins to waver. There is only truth in existence. It rumbles. Marshall has had enough, firing blasts of energy at the image. A massive fist flying out, slamming into the ground, knocking the pair apart. 001 throws down another portal, teleporting Marshall to safety, and then he leaps, opening fire on the giant. But it's not good. Marshall then appears again, a cape flapping behind him as he flies. Guess who got his cape back, he shouts, and energy gathers around him as Marshall flies forward, slamming his fist into the giant, flying straight through him. Another black hole opens up and Marshall is sucked into it, landing in another landscape. His body exhausted as he continues to move forward, searching for Nathan. A voice booms through the world, or maybe it is in his mind. Why are you here? There is only truth in existence. Why are you here? Something reaches out for Marshall, a swirl of light and color that grabs him. Show me, the voice demands, and Marshall falls to his knees in the black void with the voice demanding the truth, and he finally stops arguing. He deserves this, not me, Marshall says in defeat, and the voice demands to know why Marshall believes this. He tells the voice that Nathan was trying to be a better person, trying to chase a dream. Marshall admits that he hates what Nathan shows him is possible, but finally reveals the truth. I just hate myself, he says quietly, admitting that he is nothing. Colors swirl around him again, and Nathan appears, telling Marshall that he isn't nothing. Nathan tells him that they can go now, that the voice will allow them. Listen, Marshall, I've known you your whole life. You're enough. You're more than enough, and you've done some amazing things. You're on an adventure. Everyone goes on one. Yours is just different than mine. You can do this, Nathan tells him. Marshall looks at his friend. How could you possibly know that? He asks, and Nathan smiles. Because there's only truth in existence, he says, and the friends hug for a moment with the black hole opening above their heads. The suit appears around Marshall again, and he grabs a hold of Nathan, lifting them both into the sky, flying up into the light. Marshall is suddenly dropped into his apartment with a crack of energy, slamming into the coffee table, breaking it apart. Home, he groans. That's convenient, he says as he struggles to his feet, rushing out of the house, running to the hospital to find Nathan's room empty. Where is he? Marshall shouts to the nurse, and she points him to the rehab center. He's shocked to find Nathan is going about physical therapy. Well, look who it is, Nathan says with a smile, getting back into his wheelchair and wheeling over to Marshall. Dude, where have you been? Marshall is confused. What? Nowhere. I mean, I came straight here. But Nathan looks at him. Marshall, I woke up 6 weeks ago. Later, the two of them sit in Nathan's hospital room as Marshall scrolls through his phone and looks at all the news that he missed. The robot did say that time worked differently. He then looks up. Do you know about the glitchy guy or the other ones? Red's maybe not as awful as we thought. Pink's cool. Yellow sucks, Marshall tells him. But Nathan tells him that he doesn't want to talk about it and that he's just tired. Nathan's parents come walking into the room, and Marshall can tell that they're very angry at him for disappearing for so long after he rushed out of the hospital. And after they leave, Marshall realizes that no one knew where he went. So he rushes out of the hospital. And after a little bit of time, he stomps angrily out of his job, discovering that he had been fired for disappearing, and that everyone presumed he had just died. That's when there was a flash of light and a portal opens up over his head. Okay, totally sorry to interrupt your hissy fit, but is now maybe actually the perfect time for a killer job offer? Ava says as she pops her head out of the portal. She takes Marshall to lunch and the two of them find themselves eating heroes outside. Remember Doppler? She asks and Marshall nods and continues to eat. Ava tells him that the woman has been on a crime spree and that she wants Marshall's help to take her out, hoping that streaming it live will help get her subs on Twitch. We could introduce your character to the channel with a matchup against an old nemesis. We could live stream the whole quest, the search, the confrontation, the rehashing of old wounds. We can make the fight a Patreon exclusive, she says, and Marshall just keeps eating and nodding, only barely knowing what she is talking about. Meanwhile, Doppler has arrived at the Mercs that she rented her suit from, telling them that she needs a recharge. We were super clear that your rental only includes a 1 charge a month. The boss says, angry that she would just show up, but she shakes her head. Look, if you want me to pay you guys and my medical bills, I need working tech. She tells him, and he finally agrees, allowing her to charge, though the boss is still surprised that she can get the suit working when his men can't. That's because they only saw it as a weapon. What you built is so much more. The thing can modulate sound and transmute it into energies. You have to treat it like an instrument. She informs him, finally standing as the charge is finished. High up in the sky, Ava and Marshall are flying along, looking for Doppler, while Ava is live streaming. She mutes their mics, though, and asks about Nathan, excited that he woke up. Oh yeah, I woke him up. What? How? Ava asks, and Marshall just looks at her. If a robot ever invites you to existence, you should say no. I don't even know what that means, Marshall, she tells him. Later, the pair get pinged by the chat that someone is informing them that they spotted Doppler. Ava teleports them to the location, and they find the robber putting stolen money into her car. Hey, the possum watcher was right, Marshall says as they fly over to her, and Doppler whirls around on them. No, 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 she shouts. Funny how we keep meeting this way, Marshall jokes, but Doppler fires a sonic blast at them. The heroes dodge it, and the blast rips into a nearby building. No, I didn't mean, Doppler tries to tell them, but the heroes are busy pulling civilians out of the building, and when they're done, Doppler has already vanished. Yeah, but we got a lead, Ava says, checking the robber's car. They go through the car and discover that Doppler is a teacher named Anja Rongja. Check it out, Ava says, showing Marshall Doppler's tablet with a picture on it. What am I looking at? Marshall asks her, and then he looks at a picture of two guys in front of a rocket. Epic front. They're like a life hacker brand channel. They make videos to show you how to make things in your life more epic. She then points to the rocket, showing Marshall the strange symbols on it and how the rocket seems to be phasing in and out. Does that glitch remind you of anyone? A short time later, Doppler appears in front of the Epic Front warehouse again with the boss yelling for her to leave. The news is just one big look of you blowing a building up. He shouts at her, but she tells him that she doesn't even know how it happened, that it seemed like she was supercharged, sound waves emitted from her body. Wait, it's doing it again, she tries to tell them, but a light flashes and Ava and Marshall appear. Hey! Ava shouts, and the heroes rush at Doppler, but she fires blasts at Pink. Black manages to slam her into a large cabinet, knocking her to the ground, and the warehouse explodes beneath them, with the heroes turning to see a van speeding out of the explosion and rushing to them. Now you're gonna get it, Doppler laughs, but the van suddenly phases out and disappears itself. Wait, I did this all for you. I just wanted to play again. Doppler shouts in surprise, but Black comes up behind her, punching her hard, slamming her into the nearby wall. She collapses to the ground and begins to cry. Oh, well, now this doesn't feel right, Marshall says as he walks forward, but Ava isn't listening. All right, stream, justice served. That's it for me, Pinkies. Logging off, she says, and Doppler is begging Black to not hit her again. But he just motions her away. Go, stop breaking the law. Consider it a warning. He tells her, and even Pink is surprised as Marshall orders Doppler to leave and try to use her powers for good. I don't know about this, Ava says as they watch Doppler run off. But regardless of how Ava felt about how Marshall handled it, the two leap into the sky to return the stolen money. I hope that was the right thing to do. I mean, people deserve a second chance, she says. And Marshall nods. This feels right. And more, right feels hard to find. He tells her. Elsewhere, Nathan is leaning up in his hospital bed, closing his eyes, listening to music, when a voice fills his mind and he feels the robot. Hello, Nathan. And there you guys have it, the finale to Radiant Black Volume 2. Now, I wanted to get back to this because I want to start trying to incorporate independent books into our channel again, but it's always super difficult to include these because they don't seemingly get a lot of views, which I understand. Everyone wants Batman and Spider-Man. They don't care about somebody known as Radiant Black. But I just love to tell you guys about the comic books that I love, and Radiant Black is one of them. So give this video a like and subscribe, share it with your friends. If we can get enough views on it, then I'll continue with Radiant Black Volume 3, and we'll keep going with this story. Also, if you just jumped in randomly at this particular episode, look down below in the comments and at the description. I'll link the first 2 videos so you can get the full story. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know your thoughts on the Massive Verse and Radiant Black, and I'll see you next time right here.